Hello and welcome to episode 81 of 10,000 Stitches podcast, a weekly chit chat all about the joys of knitting. My name is Andy and I'm coming to you today from my very boring plain white corner. And any of you guys who are watching Vlogmas have seen this red chair pretty much every night, I think now. I really need to decorate this corner a little bit because it's where I sit and do a lot of my knitting and stuff. And I actually used to have a picture hanging up. You can see the little command strip right here where it was hanging, but it fell down like in the middle of the night a couple weeks ago and I just haven't put it back up yet. So yeah, plain white corner, but whatever. This is where I have the best light right now, so it's what we're gonna go with. Like I said, my name is Andy. If you were looking for me on the interwebs, you can find me on Instagram, Twitter, and Ravelry as Purlbug, P-U-R-L-B-U-G. You can find my blog at thepurlbug.com, and then we have the 10,000 Stitches podcast group on Ravelry. If you're looking for links to anything that I mentioned today, like shops or patterns or whatever, if you're watching this via the embedded video on the blog post or the Ravelry thread, everything will be linked right below the video. If you are watching this on YouTube, in the description box below the video, there will be a link to the blog post and you can go there. And like I said, everything will be linked right below the video. I am recording on Sunday, December 3rd, and this episode will go up on Tuesday, December 5th. I don't like how much white space there is above my head. Let's see if I can adjust this camera really quick to tilt it down just a little bit. Yeah, let's go with that. Like I said, I'm doing Vlogmas, and so by the time you guys see this, we'll already be 5 or so videos in, but if you want to check it out, it's just on the channel, and I actually have a playlist as well, if you want to like catch up or something. It's called, I think, Vlogmas 2017. They are relatively short videos. My video yesterday was actually like almost 20 minutes, but most of that was sort of extra footage at the end. The bulk of the video was about 10 minutes. So that's kind of what I'm working towards, is episodes of about 5 to 10 minutes long each day. And I will be doing that all the way up until Christmas, maybe all the way through the end of the month. We'll see if I have enough momentum to keep going after Christmas, but my goal is to at least make it all the way till Christmas. And yeah. Otherwise, the plan for today's episode is to do finished objects, works in progress, what's coming up next, you know, the usual stuff. We'll talk about the knit along, we'll do question of the week, and then I actually, instead of doing a chit chat segment at the end, I might talk a little bit about my trip up to New Hampshire for Thanksgiving, and then I also have some pretty cool yarn to show off. So it won't be a super chatty end section, just because, you know, again, I'm doing Vlogmas, so anyone who's curious about my life has been seeing what's been going on, and yeah, so I don't feel the need to rehash things. And I feel like my camera managed to slip its way back to where it was before. Stupid thing. I don't have it on a tripod right now. I actually have it on the back of a chair. Oh, now the microphone's in the shot. Can I? There we go. The struggles. Anyway, I have the camera on the back of a chair, like on the slat on the back of a chair, because I didn't want to drag out the tripod. And actually putting it on the back of the chair is just about the right height, so we're going with it. Yeah, let's talk finished objects. So I have one finished object to show you guys today, and that is my Christmas socks. So these are my Christmas socks. These guys are done. These are knit using my hand-dyed yarn in the peppermint bark chocolate peppermint bark, whatever it was that I was calling it, colorway. And these are on a stellina base. So let's see if I can get that close enough that you guys will be able to see that. There we go. It's a little bit washed out, but yeah, that's what that looks like. So I think I talked a little bit about this in the last episode, but I really like this. This is using the technique for dyeing variegated yarn that I showed off in my crockpot dyeing tutorial. And yeah, it really is great because it produces no pooling. Like you can see, neither of these socks pooled at all. So I really like it. And yeah, so the main color is that chocolate peppermint bark. The cuffs and toes are, I think it's like Cascade Heritage sock in like some cream colorway. I still have about this much left of it. So, you know, I've just been using it for like cuffs and toes on things every so often. Actually, I used it to knit the cuffs on the socks that I'm wearing right now. So these are a pair of socks that I knit up last year for Christmas, and there you go. There's that cream colored cuff on them. So go figure. But, and then the heel is a 75/25 BFL nylon hand-dyed yarn that I did, and this is the one that I used for my Vivid cowl. And again, I have a little ball of leftovers that I'll just use for heels, cuffs, and toes. And then I have this much of the main color left. This is about 30 grams, I think. So I'm always surprised when I weigh how much yarn I have left over, like how little yarn I use for my socks. Like this sock, this is like a pretty long leg on this sock. So I did 20 rows of 2x2 rib, and then 80 rows of leg, my standard sort of heel flap and heel turn, and then I did 100 rows of foot from where I changed back to the main color to where I started the toe. So it's 100 rows of knitting there, and then sort of my standard rounded toe. And I always feel like, especially because I have really big feet, that should wind up using most of a skein of yarn, but I always have like 20 to 30 grams extra. And granted, you know, with this one, if I wouldn't have done the contrasting heels, cuffs, and toes, I'm sure I would have not had as much extra, but it's always surprising to me. These were knit on a US size 0 for the most part, which is a 2mm needle. Because I did such a long leg on these, I actually like to try and then do my cuff at the top with a bigger needle. So with this one, I cast on with a US 1.5, which is a 2.5mm needle, and then I switched to a US 1 to work the cuffs. That's a 2.25mm needle. And then when I got to the body or the leg, I switched to the US 0, the 2mm needle. And that's just because I don't really depend on the cuff to like hit, you know, hold it up on my leg. And if I don't tend to like do something to make sure that it's a little bit extra stretchy at the top, it will actually be too tight. So I have gotten into the routine now of either casting on with a bigger needle or casting on and knitting the entire cuff with a bigger needle. And I find that it works, especially with like US 0s, because it's so easy to cast on way too tight with those. So yeah, that's these. I haven't worn them yet because I wanted to keep them nice looking for the podcast, and now I will wear them. I am pretty sure that even though, you know, the dye is set and it's, you know, it's been washed and everything, red dye always bleeds just a little bit, and so I'm pretty sure that the first time I wash these, the cuffs and toes are no longer going to be this nice pretty white. I'm pretty sure that they're going to turn pink, which is fine, it's whatever, but I did want to show them off before I had washed them, and I'll get pictures taken this afternoon while they're on the blockers, and then I'll wear them and enjoy them, and who cares if they turn pink, whatever. So that's my only finished object for this week. So I'm trying to think, let's talk works in progress. I have 2 works in progress this week. I'll show the socks off first, and then we'll get to my other work in progress. So my current sock whip is my Advent socks. And I've been showing these off on Vlogmas, so if you're up to date on there, you've actually probably seen more than what I'm showing off right now. But yeah, these are similar to my Advent socks from last year, where they're just scrappy socks used with the little balls of yarn that I wind up with left over after I finish my socks. And so these are both of them. Last year, what I did was I knit them one at a time, right? So I had 5-gram balls, and I would knit the entire 5-gram ball, or well, 20 rows, onto one sock, and I just went in order through both of them. So they were totally mismatchy socks. This year, I'm actually knitting my socks concurrently, obviously. So the only things that will be really mismatched are the heels, cuffs, and toes, because the heels, cuffs, and toes are going to be different. As you can see, the cuffs are 2 different balls of yarn. But then I'm knitting half of each little ball for each day as, you know, a small stripe, if that makes sense. So each of these cuffs was 20 rows of 2x2 rib, and then I'm going to be doing 10 row stripes with the rest of the colors, except for the heels and toes, which again will be mismatched. And this works out because that gives me 6 days for the heels, cuffs, and toes, and which leaves 18 days for the stripes, which works because each stripe will be 10 rows long, and so that actually will be perfect to sort of match the proportions that I did on these socks, where I'll have 100 rows, so that'll be 10 days for the foot, 8 days for the leg. Perfect. And I am, again, knitting these on a US size 0, which is a 2mm needle, which is why I know I can use exactly the same row counts that I used on those other socks. And yeah, so I'm 3 days in. The cuff on this one is the Regia 4-ply in that ski mask colorway that I used for my Villavini socks. The cuff on this one is the contrasting color from my first poly, and then the first stripe on both of them is a Crazy Zauberball leftover, which is from my striped Crazy Zauberball socks. So yeah, pretty cool, pretty exciting, loving them. And I'm just excited to see how they work up. I'm excited that they will be sort of matchy, but sort of mismatchy. Not excited to weave in the ends though. I actually haven't finished weaving in the ends on my Christmas socks either. So I need to get that done today too. But otherwise, totally loving these, super excited about it. And yeah, we'll see how they work up. I have been showing off the progress each day on Vlogmas, so if you kind of want to see them as they're happening, that's a good place to see that. My other work in progress is my dotted raised shawl, which is sitting on the floor here very unceremoniously. As a reminder, this is a Stephen West pattern called Dotted Rays, and this is how it looks now. I feel like it doesn't look that different than when I showed it off last time, because when I showed it off last time, it was too big to stretch out on the needles, and it's still too big to stretch out on the needles. So yeah, let's see if I can kind of, maybe I could just sort of spread out part of it. Yeah, that kind of looks right. Right, so this is sort of, to rehash, I think I talked a little bit about this last time, but basically the way that this pattern works without giving away too much is you start here, and you can see that's where all the dots are like really kind of close together. And what you're doing is you're making these sort of segments, arches, however you want to call it, using short rows. And so that's, yeah. So basically all of your increasing happens on this edge, and that keeps this nice sort of sunburst pattern over here. And as you can see, your little dots get further and further apart, kind of as you get further out on the shawl, because of course, like, to make this, you're doing more and more short rows. So yeah, so far I'm really liking it. I am knitting this up on one of my hand-dyed yarns. It's a 2-ply, 75% superwash merino, 25% nylon base, and it is dyed up in a sort of gradient for that pumpkin drink colorway. And I am nearing the end of the first ball of yarn. So I have about this much left of the first ball. So my plan is to finish the little segment that I am on currently, and then I am going to start alternating this with the next skein, which is over here, to sort of start blending the two colors together. So this is what the next skein, so you can kind of see the difference. I'm hoping it will be a fairly subtle transition. That's what I was going for, but I guess we'll see. I mentioned this before, but like, this is one of those shawls where it just all of a sudden seems like the rows get to be infinitely long. And that's sort of where I am right now, where it's just like, these rows are really, really long, as you can see. And it is a big project. Like, it's a 3-skein fingering weight yarn project. So like, this is basically as much work as the last sweater I knit was. And yeah, it's gonna be a lot of work, but I'm very excited, and I'm especially excited to see, you know, once I start moving into the second color, kind of how that looks. And I'm really excited to see if I was able to get the effect that I had in my head. But yeah, I've talked about this before, so I'm not going to go on about it too much, but I will mention that like the one modification that I've made is I am using a US 4, which is a 3.5mm needle. The pattern calls for a US 6, which is a 4mm needle. But like I've said before, I just think that would be too loose for fingering weight yarn. I feel like the 4 gives me kind of the density that I want, especially since this is like all garter stitch. I just feel like I really like the way the fabric works up with the US 4. And it's still, you know, plenty drapey. It's not like it's super tight or anything. And especially because I've seen some pictures of how big these shawls can get, I don't think using a slightly smaller needle is going to hurt things any. I think it's still going to be gigantic when it gets finished. But yeah, that's that. Like I said, I feel like I don't have much to show you guys, even though I have been working on it. But it's just like one of those things to where, you know, I guess it's sort of, you know, like when you're in the black hole of stockinette for the body of a sweater, this sort of feels the same way, where it's like, it's at this point I'm just doing the same thing until I get to the end, but I'm very excited to see how it looks at the end. And yeah, I actually should get this probably wound up soon so that I can start blending the colors. Sweet. So that's all of my stuff that's in progress. So let's talk about what's coming up next. I want to try and focus, well, so my Advent socks are going to be my only sock project that I have going until they're done, because I want to make sure I have time to get them done every single day. And then otherwise, I'm going to try and focus most of my energy on the dotted rays, because I've mentioned before that it's a shawl that I'm knitting up for Wesley's mother. And even though it's not like a Christmas present for her, it would be really nice if I could have it done in time for Christmas. If for nothing else, then it just kind of is like a good sense of closure, you know, like I don't want to let the project stretch out into the start of 2018. So my goal is to kind of really focus on that and get that done, hopefully before Christmas. And we'll see. So, you know, we're at the end of the semester, which I think I mentioned before. We're kind of coming into the end of the semester, and that means that my work is going to slow down a lot, because I don't, like the classes that I teach, I don't do finals in, and so I don't really, you know, finals week is a very crazy time for some people. It's not a crazy time for me because I'm done basically at that point. So I might have a lot of sort of free time at work coming up. I mean, obviously I have other things that I've been sort of saving that need to get done, but I think I'll have a lot of free time. So I'm thinking that since my Advent socks are only 20 rows a day, I'm thinking that's not gonna, like I will probably have extra time at work, and I don't want to bring the dotted rays with me because it's just so big and cumbersome. So I think what I might do is start working on Wesley's laptop case, which I talked about before, but it's going to be based on a blanket called the Aspens, and I'll try and put a picture in here just as a reminder of sort of what it looks like. The blanket itself is this big, huge, super chunky cabled pattern. I'm going to be knitting it with a worsted weight yarn on US 5s, which are 3.75 millimeter needle, which will obviously bring the size down a lot. And I'm thinking that will make it just the right size to make a laptop case for him. So more on that kind of once I get it going, but I am thinking I am gonna get it going because, again, I'd like to have it done in time for Christmas, so that I can bring it with me when I go see him for Christmas and give it to him then. Not as a Christmas gift, but just because it's good timing. So yeah, I'm gonna work on that. And what else? Oh, I was gifted very kindly by a viewer, so thank you very much, you know who you are. I was gifted the Valinar set, which is the, I think I've talked before about the cowl. It's the Valinar cowl, and it's this like really great sort of like masculine, I think it's cabled sort of cowl that I really want to knit. And unfortunately, you know, now that I've sort of seen the yardage requirements for it, I don't think I don't have the right kind of yarn in the right yardage to start that. But in that set was also a pair of mittens, and I've been thinking for a little while that I would like another pair of fingerless mitts. And so I think I might take the mitten pattern and turn it into a pair of fingerless mitts when I get the time. That'll be, you know, sort of a project that's down the road, but it is something I want to think about because, yeah, it's just like the sort of detailing that's used in that set is just magnificent, and I really like it. So, yeah. But I think that's it for what's coming up next. So let's talk some dyeing. I actually haven't been doing a lot of dyeing lately. I dyed up a whole bunch of yarn before Thanksgiving and then put everything in my Etsy shop on sale over the Thanksgiving weekend to try and clear out the shop, and that totally happened, so thanks to everyone who bought something. But yeah, so my Etsy is going to be closed down for all of December and probably even most of January, I'm thinking, just because, you know, things are busy and I don't want to be dealing with the less fun side of dyeing, which is sort of the, you know, I love dyeing and I love selling the yarn, but like sort of the admin things can get a little bit annoying sometimes. So yeah, but I did actually just dye up a skein, which is still over in the pot cooling, for my older brother's lady friend. I guess she crochets, and so he wanted me to dye up a skein of yarn for her. So that is in the pot. My guess is that I'm going to try and get it sent out as soon as it's dry. So you guys probably won't see it on the podcast, but I will, of course, show it off on Vlogmas, so stay tuned for that. But the only other dyeing I have to show off is some dyeing that I did before Thanksgiving, but I did it like the day before I left, so it wasn't dry by the time, like it wasn't dry to put in the shop, and I didn't really want to sell it anyway. But when I ordered my last batch of yarn, I ordered a set of, I think it was a ½ kilogram set of 20-gram mini skeins. And because I just wanted to play around with doing that, and I've had a few just complete disasters with dyeing them because I had ideas in my head that I think would have worked for like full-size skeins and didn't work very well for mini skeins. So you live and you learn. I mean, the ones that I've dyed that are not great, I think I can over dye and they'll be fine, at least for me to use. I'll find a use for them. But this set I did manage to dye up and I like the results. And so this is sort of what it looks like. So it's a five color set, and I already put it in the plastic wrap because I kind of wanted to see how it looked in here. I suppose I could do some sort of ASMR stuff. I've talked before, I watch ASMR, which if you've never heard of it, I will, I'll link to, I have like a little sampler playlist, but it's basically, they're weird videos. Like if you've never watched them, they're really weird because it's a lot of people speaking very quietly and like touching microphones and, you know, crinkling plastic and like rubbing fabrics and things. It's very weird, but it's also very relaxing and very soothing. And I watch them a lot, like if I, you know, need to go to bed, but I'm like super wired and my brain is like all over the place. Anyway, that's a joke for people who know what it is. But the point being, so it's a 5 color set, and so it's a solid red, and then a speckled red, a speckled green, and solid green, and then sort of a solid tan rose gold kind of color. And yeah, I really like it. So I think I'm going to, I dyed up 2 sets of this. One of the sets I'm going to keep for myself, and I think they'll be my like Christmas Eve cast on or something. And the other set I don't know what I'm going to do with, but yeah, I think it'll be really fun. I think when I knit them up, I'm going to do this top color as the heels, cuffs, and toes. And then one sock will be striped with like the solid green and the speckled red, and the other sock will be striped with the speckled green and solid red. And I think that'll be kind of fun. Another sort of scrappy, stripy pair of socks that are kind of Christmas themed. So yeah, that's something that I've been working on that I really enjoyed, and I really like the way that it came out. And then this is not dyeing, but I thought I would share some other sort of fibery things that I've been doing, which is spinning. I'll get into why I decided I wanted to learn how to spin, but I think I've talked about this before. My older brother, I think it was last year for Christmas, got me some fiber for spinning. And sorry for the noise. It is from, where's it from? Prairie Retreat Farm, which is in Iowa. I think it's near where he goes to school. And this is, it was 4 ounces of Shetland wool roving, and it came from a sheep named Harry. So this is what that looks like. Let me see if I can focus this. So that's the label from it. And then this is what it looks like. I think I've shown this off before. This is what the roving looks like. So it's sort of this very natural, wholesome, rustic brown wool. And I bought a drop spindle, I think when I went to, I think it was last year when I went to the Powhatan Festival of Fiber. So this is what that looks like if I can get it out of the bag. So it's just a bottom whorl drop spindle. And I'm now thinking that this was probably not the best one for me to be learning with because I don't know that it's weighted correctly, and I would maybe like a bigger whorl on the bottom. So, you know, but whatever, like it's fine for my skill level because my skill level right now is 0. And to really prove that point, this is some yarn that I've been working on since I got back from Thanksgiving, you know, so I've been doing a little bit at a time. So last night I, you know, plied it and washed it, and this is what it looks like. And I think it would be generous to call this yarn because it is not good at all. Luckily, I didn't spin up a ton of it. Like, I think there's maybe only 20 to 25 yards here. But yeah, it's not good. It is not good at all. And I talked a little bit about this on the Vlogmas, on Vlogmas day 3, I guess. I was talking about this, and you know what? It's something that I'm just not good at yet, and I'm just gonna have to get better at it. And as much as I want to be good at it right now, I need to keep telling myself that, like, you know what? This is fine for a beginner because I don't know what I'm doing, right? Like, I feel like this is one of those things that would be easier to learn if I could have someone in person teaching me, but I don't have that right now. And so I'm just gonna do my best. I think part of the reason that this is so, let's call it rustic looking, is because I was not very good at like keeping the like gauge of my spinning consistent, if that makes sense. I'm not very good at the whole drafting. Like, I'm very much in the park and draft phase, which is where you spin your spindle and you let the twist kind of move up, and then you stop it, like you put it between your knees, and then you sort of draft and let the twist move up the yarn or the wool that you're drafting, if I've described that correctly. Which is a very slow way to do it, and it's not the way that people who actually know what they're doing do it, but it's the way that I'm doing it as a beginner. So I think part of it's that. Part of it, I think, is that I don't know how much twist I should be putting into my singles. So I think some of this is over twisted, and I'm sure some of it is under twisted, which I think also made it very hard to ply it, because there's a car alarm going off somewhere. I'm sorry if you guys can hear that. But anyway, I think it's not good because I'm just not good at it yet. But you know what? That's okay. I still have a bunch of fiber left, so I'm gonna just keep spinning it up into some really bad yarn, and we'll see if I get any better. I did ask, my family's always like, oh, well, what do you want for Christmas? And so I told my brothers that I would like another drop spindle. I found some that I think I really like. Just aesthetically, they're more pleasing. So I asked them for a drop spindle, so I'll probably get another one for Christmas, a Turkish drop spindle. So I'll probably get another one for Christmas. And I told them, like, if you want to get me some fiber, that would be great too. So I'm sure I'll probably get some more for Christmas, and I'm just going to keep practicing with what I have until then and just keep being bad at it, because it will always be hard until suddenly it's easy, right? But yeah, that's that for my fibery goodness kind of stuff. Actually, I lied. I have more fibery goodness to show off, and this leads us into talking about the knit along, so it's kind of perfect. But yeah, so I went up to New Hampshire over Thanksgiving, and while we were there, we actually took a sort of overnight trip over to Montreal, which I think I've mentioned this before. We took an overnight trip over to Montreal to meet up with a friend of mine, because I've spoken about my Canadian pen pal before. He actually got me the yarn that made the socks that I'm wearing today. That's weird. But yeah, Montreal is just about halfway in between where Wesley lives and where he lives, and so we're like, this is perfect, like, let's meet up there. So yeah, and being the sweet guy that he is, he brought me some yarn, and so this is the yarn that he brought me, and this is from Lois Friedman, who I guess her website is Valley Artisans. I think he said it was someone sort of local to where he lives, I think. I don't remember. But yeah, this is the label. Let me try and focus on, and of course I will link to that website as well. But there's the label, there's the front, and then this is the back. So this is hand spun yarn, and so there's the information on the back. So it's BFL mixed with rose fiber, and it's a 2-ply worsted, and it's about 162 yards to 117 grams. And it's a fairly dense yarn, I guess, if that makes sense, but it's just really beautiful. And so this is what got me thinking, like, okay, I want to learn how to spin yarn, because like, I don't necessarily want to spin all of the yarn that I use, because that would just be not an efficient use of my time. But like, I feel like there's sort of effects that you get from hand spun yarn that you can't really get via dyeing, right? Like there's just, I don't know how to do like this sort of like barber pulling with dyeing. I just don't think you can do it once the yarn is already plied. And so this is what got me thinking, like, okay, I need to learn how to spin yarn because I want to make things like this. But anyway, so this is just so beautiful, and it's getting a little bit washed out with the lighting, but it's just so beautiful, and it's soft, but it smells a little bit woolly. I don't know, it's wonderful, and I'm thinking I'm gonna make it into a hat probably, because I love it so much and I want it to be something which is always sort of on display, you know, when it's being used. And so I think a hat will be perfect. Plus I think I can find a hat that only needs about 160 yards or so. And I want to use up like every single inch of this because I just think it's magnificent. So yeah, that's sort of what got me thinking about spinning again. And then speaking of being in Montreal, I had talked about the fact that I was probably going to pick up a prize for the current knit along while I was up there. And I did. Don't forget that part of the prize for the current knit along is also a pattern from Maria Amelie Designs. I will have her design page on Ravelry linked in the notes, but she has generously donated a pattern of the winner's choice from her shop. And like I think I gushed a little bit too much last time, but seriously, I love all of her designs. So definitely go check her out. And so then that's sort of a digital part of the prize. And then as the physical part of the prize, I picked up some Canadian goodies because I love Canada, man. So there's two parts to this. So the first part is this sort of project bag, which is not a project bag. I picked this up from Indigo, which is, I guess, like a Canadian version of Barnes & Noble. I think it's a Canadian sort of shop. I've never seen them in the States. So, but yeah, it's just this very cute Canada bag, and it has a moose on it and a little owl. I thought it was super cute. And like, it's a good size bag. Like, I have a single skein of yarn in here and it takes up about that much room, but like you could definitely fit a good size shawl project in here. And it's a drawstring bag. So super cute. And it's sort of like a canvas sort of material. It's nothing super fancy because like I said, it's not meant to be like a knitting project bag, but I just thought it was super cute for a project bag that's not a project bag. So that's that. And then the yarn. So I went to, oh my gosh, I'm not gonna be able to say this properly. Espace Tricot? However it is that you say that, I can't speak French. But yeah, it's the big knitting store in Montreal. So I went there and I actually did take some footage of the shop. So I will probably pop that in right here. So yeah, it was interesting because the shop was actually smaller than I thought it would be, which I feel like is always the case with knitting stores. But I think maybe just because I had seen photos and stuff on like Google or something, I thought it was going to be bigger than that. But like they had a ton of yarn there. So I picked up a yarn from a Canadian dyer, and this is Artfill, hand-painted, eco-friendly, natural yarn. And so this is the, well, okay, so let's show you the yarn first and then I'll show you the label. So this is the yarn that I picked up as the prize for the knit along. And I thought it was just so beautiful. It's getting a little washed out, but not really. Like the colors really are this vibrant. So it's sort of natural on this side, and then it's just this really speckled, beautiful, bright blue color. And, you know, it sort of like fades between them. I just thought it was beautiful. And the colorway is H2O. And I'll show you guys the label. So it's a 80-20 superwash merino nylon blend, and it's 354 meters to 100 grams. And let me show you the label. It doesn't really want to focus very well, but we'll go with that. And obviously I will link to them as well in the show notes, but I just thought it was beautiful, and I just, I fell in love with it. I'm a little bit sad to let it go away, but yeah, I think this is a, I don't even know how many plies this is, but it's like a really plump, squishy sort of yarn, and I'm just really excited for whoever wins this. So yeah, that's going to be the prize for the current knit along, which let's talk about what the current knit along is. The current knit along is our last knit along of 2017, and it is neutrals or something new is sort of what I'm calling it. So the color theme for this one is brown or gray. And the technique theme is try something new. So like I've said before, that could be a maybe new designer, it could be a new yarn, and by new yarn it could be, you know, a new indie dyer or something, or it could be a new base, or it could be, you know, maybe a new weight that you've never worked with before. Like if you've never worked with lace weight yarn and you want to knit something out of lace weight, by all means. It could be a new technique that you've never used before. It could be all kinds of different things, right? It's very open to interpretation. And the rules, as usual, are basically that it has to be, the finished object has to be between 50 and 150 grams worth of yarn, and it has to fit one of the two themes. Only one of them. I know someone thought that it had to fit both of them. It only has to fit one of the two themes, so it can fit either the color or the technique or both. But yeah, otherwise it's pretty wide open. And as usual, I always link to the chatter thread in the notes, so you can go there and check out like the full list of rules. But yeah, we've been having a lot of finished objects for this one, and I'm just really enjoying seeing them come in. And I've been brainstorming a little bit, not super seriously, about the knit-alongs for next year, and I think, unless anyone has a serious objection to it, I think I'm going to keep doing it sort of where I'm probably going to continue doing 6, you know, so every 2 months, because that seems like a good amount of time, right? It's long enough for people who are maybe not super quick knitters to get something in, but it's also not too long to where you lose interest. And I think I'm going to continue doing, you know, each one sort of having a theme with, you know, there being 2 ways to get in, right? Because I kind of like the color or the technique idea, because I know the first year when I did techniques only, like, you know, if you're not into knitting lace or cables or something, like it's hard to join in the knit along. But I feel like with the color in there as well, like it allows people who maybe are at the stage where you're only knitting vanilla socks, or you only want to knit vanilla socks, or, you know, whatever. I feel like it lets them get in on that too, you know, without having to necessarily fit in with the theme. So I think my sort of, what is the word that I want to use? Sort of my big theme for the knit-alongs next year is going to be maybe a little bit more out there, but I'm going to continue to sort of stick with, like, you can get in either by satisfying a color or a technique, and we'll go with that. But yeah, that's that for the knit-along. Keep getting things in, because, you know, we still have most of December left to get things in, so yeah. And then question of the week. So my question of the week this week is, okay, well, I have to tell the story first and then I'll ask the question, because I don't think I can phrase the question in a way that it makes sense without telling you guys the story first. But so my very favorite Christmas movie is Home Alone 2, followed closely by Home Alone 1, right? I really like those 2 original Home Alone movies. And Wesley was very sweet and got them for me on DVD and as like digital downloads. So I've been watching them over the past couple days to really get in the Christmas spirit. And, you know, Home Alone 2, like I've always just suspended my disbelief for, because it's like, yeah, this is a totally wacky situation and that's fine. But I was watching Home Alone 1 last night, and just so many things about that movie. I'm just like, everything is wrong here, right? Like, for one thing, the family, the parents are like the worst people, and as are the siblings, right? Like, these are the worst people, and the police in that movie are the worst people. Like, it's just, that movie makes it really hard for me to like suspend my disbelief. And I get, right, that it's a 90s movie, it's a kid's movie, right? It's supposed to be very wacky and crazy, and I do very much enjoy watching it. But my question is there sort of like a kid's movie that you watch as an adult? And it doesn't have to be a movie that you watched as a kid, right? Because actually I was growing up right at the right time for Home Alone, but I don't think I watched them as a kid. But like, is there a kid's movie that you watch now as an adult and you're like, this is just crazy. Like, this could never happen. Like, there's no way this many people could be this incompetent to make this happen, right? Is there one of those movies for you? I would say for me, it is definitely Home Alone 1. Less so with Home Alone 2, but Home Alone 1 is definitely like, there is no way that everyone in the world could be this dumb to make this happen. Go figure. But yeah, that's going to be it for sort of the normal yarny stuff. Like I said, I do have some fun yarn stuff to show off. I'll probably do a little bit of rehashing what I did over Thanksgiving, and then I'll talk about the yarny goodness that I have to show off. But if you don't want to hear the chit-chatty sort of stuff, that's going to be it for this week. So thank you very much for hanging out, and I will see you next time. Otherwise, let's get to the other stuff. So a quick recap of my trip up to New Hampshire for Thanksgiving. It was really good. Traveling went smoothly, and let's see, I got up there on Wednesday, and then Wednesday night I made a French silk pie for the first time in years. And this is actually something I used to make all the time. I will try to remember to link to my kind of go-to French silk pie recipe, but if you've never had or heard of French silk pie before, it's sort of like a chocolate mousse pie, but a little bit denser. But we were going to be going to Thanksgiving at the home of one of Wesley's coworkers, and so I wanted to bring something, and especially because desserts are sort of tough to do gluten-free if you don't know what you're doing, I offered to bring a pie. So I made that because it has to set in the fridge overnight. So I did that Wednesday night, and then Thursday we went to Thanksgiving with one of Wesley's coworkers, which was really fun. It was, it was us and this guy's family, and then a couple of Wesley's other coworkers and stuff. So it wasn't just us being weird invading someone's house, but yeah, they were very welcoming, and it was very fun. Good food. And so we did that, and then Friday, Wesley had to work, and then Friday after he got off of work, we drove over to Montreal, which I think we got a little bit more worked up about than we should have, because it's just nerve-wracking to drive in another country where like the speed limits are, in different units, and especially in Quebec, because Quebec, everything is in French. Like most people there speak English, I think, especially in the cities. Like in Montreal, I wasn't worried about finding people who didn't speak English, but all the road signs are in French, and maybe they have English on them too, but maybe they don't. So I think we were a little bit nervous about that. And of course, crossing the border, they're just like, why are you here? Like, who are you meeting? What do you do? Like, and for us, it's really confusing too, because, Wesley lives in New Hampshire. I live in Virginia. Wesley still has a Minnesota driver's license. I have a Virginia driver's license. The car is registered in Virginia, but it's just very confusing, because we are very confusing people who move around a lot. But yeah, whatever. And so then we got to our hotel in Montreal, and we met up with my friend, and we went and got dinner and went to this amazing dessert place, like just ridiculous dessert place, like so good. So we did that, and then it was very late and we went to bed. And so then the next day was when we went to the knitting store, and we went to the bookstore, and just sort of drove all around Montreal. And Montreal drivers are cray-cray. And we got poutine. It was my first time having like real authentic poutine. And if you've never heard of poutine, what poutine is it's a Canadian dish, and it's French fries and cheese curds and gravy, and it is magnificent. I got a poutine that also had bacon in it, and it had sweet potato fries instead of regular French fries, and oh my god, like how do I live without this now, right? It was amazing. So we did that, and then, managed to drag ourselves out of the carb coma from that to drive home, or back to New Hampshire. And then we just sort of hung out for the rest of the weekend, and then on Monday I flew back to Richmond. So yeah, and otherwise it's just been, kind of a normal week since then. So since I don't have much to talk about, and the other things that have been interesting going on lately, I've been showing you guys in Vlogmas, I thought I would show you this package that I got. And this is actually something that I was supposed to get, I think, before Thanksgiving, and then it kind of got delayed in shipment. But this is a package sent to me by Wesley's mother, and I forget the exact details of how she came across this, but it was like somewhere that she normally goes, so like the place where she goes to get her hair done or her nails or something like that. They were doing sort of like a craft sale or something there, something like that. And so someone was selling a whole bunch of this vintage yarn. And so she picked up everything which was, natural colored to send to me. And it's a huge box. Like, I'm going to be pulling it out to show you guys, and you're going to realize like how giant this box is. And so thank you very much. It's amazing. And she thought I could, dye some of it and have some fun with it. So I'll just go through it. I did go through it when I got it. Like, I opened it up, obviously, and kind of looked through it, but I haven't really looked through it in detail. So this is sort of like the first and a half look for me too. Probably what there is the most of in here is this yarn, and this is this Buchia Deluxe Knitting Worsted, and it's twin packs of 2 ounce balls, so it's 4 ounce packs, and this is from Bernhard Ullman, I think is the company, and I have no idea when this is from. What's crazy is like they don't list yardage on most of these labels. Like, they just list the weight, but not the yardage, which is very strange to me. And I'm pretty sure that these are not superwash. Like, none of them say superwash on them, so I'm just going to assume that none of them are superwash. But basically, they look like this. And so each half of this is actually one small ball, which looks like, and again, I'm sorry for all the rustling. There's not a lot I can do about it. But so each of these twin packs has 2 of these 2 ounce balls in it. And so I was curious about what the yardage was. So I actually took the partner to this one that came out of this package and put it on my Swift to kind of figure out what the yardage is. So this is the result of that. And I think each of these 2 ounce skeins has about 125 yards in it. So that means, and so I have 6 of these packs. So that means I have roughly 1,500 yards of this worsted weight yarn. So I think this one, at the very least, I'm going to keep for myself, very selfishly, and dye up to knit a sweater, because I recently got a bunch of sweater patterns from Knit Picks. They were doing a sale, so I bought a bunch of ebooks for patterns. And they all need worsted weight yarn for the most part, and I don't really tend to buy worsted weight yarns. I just didn't have the quantities that I needed. So now I have basically a sweater's quantity of worsted weight yarn. So yeah, I'm very excited about this. I'll check back in with you guys probably once I dye all of it up. What's really interesting is that it's not, like, it's all the same color, but like these are not all the same dye lots. And so like this one doesn't look quite the same. Anyway, I'll let you guys know how it dyes up. But I'm definitely gonna have to be careful when I'm dyeing it because I don't think it's superwash. So maybe I'll record a video about like tips and tricks for dyeing non-superwash yarn once I've kind of figured it out. But yeah, so this is the rest of all of that. So like I said, there's 6 of those total. And then, okay, this is the next thing. So then I also have, what is this? This is a 4 ounce skein of special worsted knitting yarn, is what it says on the label. And again, I don't think it has, yep, it doesn't have a yardage. Doesn't really have much information at all on it. It just says that it's a 4 ounce skein of worsted weight yarn. So that's another one that I will probably put on my Swift and re-skein just to figure out like what the yardage is. But again, I'm pretty sure this is not superwash. It's also not super soft. Like, it is maybe not a next to skin sort of yarn. Like, it would be fine for hats or mittens or something, or like a sweater that you will wear over something, but it is definitely not, like, it's not merino. Let's put it that way. It is not merino. So I have one, I think I have 2 of these because this one doesn't have a label on it, but it looks to be basically the same. So I'm pretty sure I have 2 of these. Let's put those back in their bags that contain them. And then what else? Oh, let's see. I have this, which says homespun yarn, homespun in Bemidji from the wool of sturdy northern grown sheep. I love that. Bemidji, by the way, is in northern Minnesota. And it has little sheeps on the label. Isn't that cute? So this right here is a little sheep. So that's that. And this again is sort of a natural color. It's definitely not merino. It's sturdy. It's a very sturdy yarn. Let's see. This again is a 4-ounce skein and does not tell me anything about the yardage. So manufactured by Bemidji Woolen Mills in Bemidji, Minnesota. So that's pretty cool. So I have one of those, I think just one of those. And then I have 3 of these, and these are Pergint Sportsgarn. It's a German label. Let's see if I can detach these. Oh no, I'm ripping it. Okay. So this is, I think that's German. That might not be German. Maybe, oh, it's made in Norway, so it's whatever language they say. Norwegian, duh, Norwegian. I was having such a hard time with that. It is Norwegian. So that's what that label looks like. And this is, again, 100% wool, another rustic feeling wool. This actually does have a yardage on it. It says that it's 182 meters per 100 grams. So that'll be cool. I have 3 of those. And then what else? I have this one. This is going to be really fun. So this is actually vintage Lion Brand. Lion Brand Yarn Company right there. And it says Lion Brand yarns are the best on the little front label. So that's kind of fun. This again is a pretty rustic 100% wool. Actually pretty similar to their like fisherman's wool, I think. And this one, 4 ounces, no information on yardage. How did people used to like do that? Like how did you make sure that you bought enough? I don't understand that. But anyway, so I actually have 3 of these skeins. So again, a decent amount of that yarn, so that's pretty cool. And then getting down to the last couple. So I have, what else? I have this guy, which is Scotch Fingering. I don't really know what that means. This is a Canadian yarn, and this is what the little label looks like. It's a fingering weight yarn. Again, not merino, definitely rustic, but yeah, would be good for like a hat or something like that. And then I have one of those, and then I think I have one of each of these. Let's split these guys apart. I have, let's see, this is Columbia Minerva. This is featherweight. What's really interesting is like they don't, the yarn weight system must have changed because this says featherweight knitting worsted. So I wonder if worsted means like worsted spun. But this again is 100% wool, very rustic wool. And does it tell me anything? Doesn't tell me anything about it. No. It's 2 ounces, doesn't give me yardage information, but that's what that looks like. And again, it's a fingering weight yarn. And then this is the last one. This is Columbia. Oh, maybe this is the same type of yarn. It's just packaged a little bit differently because it still says Columbia Featherweight Knitting Worsted. Yeah, this must be very similar. So that's the other one. So yeah, I have a ton of yarn to have fun with, and it'll be a good lesson in sort of dyeing up non-superwash yarn, and I'll be interested to see how much this stuff like softens up once it's been dyed and washed properly. But yeah, it all looks to be in good shape. I mean, we'll kind of see if that holds true once I've knit from it, but I don't know if there's anything I need to worry about like knitting with like old yarn. Maybe I'll do some reading into it, but if anyone knows anything about that, let me know if there's special precautions I need to look into, you know, knitting from old yarn other than just, you know, in case moths have gotten into it or something. But yeah, so that's that. That's a whole lot of fun old vintage yarn that I'm going to be playing with in the near future. So stay tuned for that. But I think that's going to be it for this week. Thank you very much for hanging out with me, and I will see you guys again next week. Bye.